Good morning, evening, or night. Wherever you are, welcome to WHAM today. Take a deep breath, clear your mind, and let's drift through the whispers of today's world, one quiet thought at a time. As we wrap up Sunday, 27th April, 2025, let's see what stories are unfolding around us. United States. Donald Trump is applying pressure on multiple fronts, both domestically and internationally. He demanded free transit for his commercial and military ships through the Panama and Suez canals, instructing Secretary of State Marco Rubio to ensure immediate action. Trump also declared that the U.S. will not reduce tariffs on China unless it receives something substantial in return. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent suggested a possible agreement with China on tariffs after discussions with Chinese officials, but noted uncertainty regarding direct communication between Trump and President Xi. Trump's strained relationship with the U.S. media continues, with intensified criticism raising concerns about press freedoms, underscored by a muted White House Correspondents' Association dinner lacking the president and a comedian. Over 400 American university presidents have voiced opposition to Trump's influence on higher education, denouncing his administration's actions as unprecedented government overreach and political interference. Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth announced an expanded military zone along the southern border with Mexico. In the Philippines, the U.S. deployed anti-ship missiles and conducted live-fire drills during the annual Balikatan exercises, amidst ongoing tensions with China. The DRC is seeking security guarantees and military support from the United States to attract American investment, a move that could threaten China's mining dominance. Laotian migrants who survived a CIA-led war and built lives in the U.S. are now being detained and deported with little warning. ICE deported a 2-year-old US citizen and mother of a 1-year-old infant amidst a court battle over Trump's immigration crackdown. Australia. With the Australian election drawing near, attention is focused on mortgage-built areas in Outer Melbourne, Sydney, and regional Victoria, and NSWHI. The Greens and Climate 200-backed independents could play a decisive role in these regions. During the final leaders' debate, Peter Dutton asserted that the Australian dream looks like a nightmare due to migration, claiming it has displaced Australians from home ownership. Dutton also stated that welcome to country ceremonies are overdone and should be limited to major events, sparking controversy. Both major political parties are pledging steep cuts on the number of foreigners allowed to study in Australia as a way to rein in runaway housing prices. The Labour government has pledged to enhance Australia's healthcare system with a free medical advice line and telehealth service if elected. Climate Integrity has filed a complaint with the ACC alleging that Australians for natural gas made misleading claims and failed to disclose directors' links to the gas industry and Liberal Party. Prime Minister Anthony Albanese has expressed his trust that Trump will support Australia's security interests despite differing views on trade. China. In response to trade pressures, Chinese exporters in various industries are establishing factories in the U.S. to avoid crippling tariffs. Chinese media has directly refuted President Trump's accusations that China dumped waste into the ocean. Ukraine. Ukrainian officials have expressed shock at a U.S. peace proposal that reportedly included recognizing Russian authority over Crimea. Ukraine maintains they will not accept any formal surrender of Crimea. Greenland. Greenland's Prime Minister Jens Frederik Nielsen has stated that the island is not for sale and that the U.S. is not showing Greenlanders proper respect. Vietnam. Thi Nguyen recalls the fall of Saigon 50 years ago, remembering the retreat of the Army of the Republic of Vietnam to Vien Tho. China is facing rising tensions in the South China Sea after its Coast Guard seized a disputed reef near a Philippine military outpost. Aiming to manage space sustainability, China is also developing a space traffic management system in response to the increasing number of satellites in orbit. Economically, China is easing tax refund rules for foreign visitors, lowering the minimum spending requirement to stimulate consumption amid the trade war with the United States. President Xi Jinping has emphasized the need to overcome challenges in AI core technology, including high-end chips, to advance Beijing's AI ambitions. Domestically, China is expanding its anti-corruption efforts, investigating 19,000 village officials in the first quarter of the year. An arrest warrant was issued for Zhou Tai, a parliamentary candidate, amidst coordinated online attacks against his campaign. A dispute over fish farms in the Yellow Sea, involving steel structures, threatens to undermine China-South Korea relations. The food delivery market is seeing increased competition as JD challenges Meituan, with both accusing each other of blocking delivery riders from rival platforms. Iran is currently investigating a massive explosion at the Shahid Rajeh port in Bandar Abbas, its largest container hub. The blast killed at least 40 people and injured hundreds, with some reports suggesting around 1,000 injuries. Initial reports pointed to a chemical blast, potentially involving missile fuel components, though officials have not confirmed an attack. Videos showed extensive damage at the still smoldering port. The country's health ministry advised residents to stay indoors. Separately, in Oman, Iran, and the U.S. are engaged in nuclear talks. Both sides have agreed to continue discussions next week. Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araki expressed extreme caution about the talks' success. However, both sides reported positive progress. A new nuclear deal could significantly alter Iran's economic and political situation by easing Western sanctions and potentially preventing a new Middle East conflict. Currently, Iran enriches uranium to 60%, exceeding the 3.67% limit from the previous agreement, but staying below the 90% needed for weapons. Russia offered assistance to Iran, dispatching emergency planes following a major explosion at the Shahid Rajeh port near the Strait of Hormuz. Domestically, Russia has filed terrorism charges against Ignat Kuzin, who admitted to the car bomb killing of an army officer, claiming recruitment by Ukraine's security services. Chief of Staff Valery Gerasimov declared that the Russian army, with assistance from North Korean soldiers, had completely liberated the Kursk region from Ukrainian control. Following this, Russia launched 149 drones against Ukraine. President Trump voiced skepticism about Vladimir Putin's genuine desire for peace in Ukraine. Ukraine faced a barrage of 149 exploding drones launched by Russia, following Russia's claim of regaining control over the Kursk region. Displaced Ukrainians are actively contributing to the war effort while longing for their homes and families. Ignat Kuzin, accused of terrorism in Russia for the car bomb killing of a Russian officer, claimed he was recruited by Ukraine's security services. In the United States, President Donald Trump expressed reservations regarding Vladimir Putin's sincerity in seeking peace in Ukraine after discussions with President Zelensky, suggesting Putin might be misleading him. Iran experienced a significant explosion at the Shahid Rajeh port near the Strait of Hormuz, causing at least 28 fatalities and injuring over 1,000 people. Vladimir Putin responded by offering assistance and sending emergency planes. Gaza is facing a dire humanitarian crisis as aid organizations report dwindling supplies and soaring prices amid Israel's ongoing blockade, potentially leading to widespread starvation and malnutrition among Palestinians. With food and medical supplies running out, the UN warns of long-term health consequences due to dietary deficiencies. An Israeli airstrike in Gaza City resulted in the deaths of 10 people, including children. Hamas has proposed a 5-year truce, a hostage release, a complete Israeli withdrawal, and increased aid in exchange for ending the war. Meanwhile, Israel is under scrutiny at the International Court of Justice, ICJ, regarding its ban on cooperation with UNRWA. The ICJ is examining whether Israel unlawfully violated the immunities granted to a UN organization. Turning to Lebanon, Israeli jets conducted strikes on Beirut's southern suburbs, marking the third such incident since the ceasefire was implemented. Lebanese President Aoun has urged the United States and France to intervene, demanding that Israel cease its attacks immediately. Finally, in Palestinian leadership news, Hossein al-Sheikh, a Fatah veteran with over a decade of experience in Israeli prisons, is being considered as a potential successor to Mahmoud Abbas, taking on the role of deputy to the PLO. Pakistan is currently grappling with heightened tensions with India, cross-border militancy, and domestic economic issues. Pakistani nationals, fearing repercussions from a recent terrorist attack in Pahalgam, hurried to exit India before an imposed deadline, resulting in emotional scenes at the Attari border crossing. Reacting to the trade suspension with India, Pakistan has implemented emergency measures to safeguard pharmaceutical supplies and maintain national health readiness. Defense Minister Khawja Asif announced that Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif has proposed an international investigation, suggesting Russian and Chinese participation into the Pahalgam terror attack. In a separate development, the Pakistani military claimed to have neutralized 54 militants attempting to cross the border from Afghanistan. These militants were identified as Qawari, a term used by the government to denote the Pakistani Taliban based on intelligence reports. Simultaneously, Pakistan's defense minister is pursuing closer relations with Bangladesh, following a Foreign Office consultation. The first such meeting between the two nations in 15 years. Turning to India, the nation faces increased tensions with Pakistan following the terrorist attack in Pahalgam. Prime Minister Narendra Modi is considering potential military responses, but concerns about revealing the status of the Indian military's ongoing modernization efforts could be a deterrent. The cessation of trade with Pakistan has spurred Pakistan to adopt emergency measures to ensure its drug supply. In Bangladesh, a recent Foreign Office consultation in Dhaka marked a potential step toward improved relations with Pakistan after almost 15 years. The event, hosted by Bangladesh High Commissioner Mohammad Iqbal Hussain Khan, suggests a move to foster stronger ties between Bangladesh and Pakistan. Finally, Afghanistan is implicated in claims from the Pakistani military, which stated that 54 militants crossing the border from Afghanistan into Pakistan were killed. These militants were identified as Qawari, a term used by the Pakistani government to refer to the Pakistani Taliban. Canada is reeling from a devastating vehicle ramming at a Vancouver street festival honoring Lapu Lapu, leaving 11 dead and more than 20 injured. Authorities have apprehended a suspect and dismissed terrorism as a potential cause. Prime Minister Mark Carney conveyed the nation's sorrow following the tragic event. As Canada approaches its federal elections on April 28th, Donald Trump's policies and pronouncements are playing a significant role. Trump's tariffs have ignited a surge of Canadian national pride, benefiting the Liberal Party in the polls. His threats to annex Canada in the campaign's closing stages have further bolstered nationalistic sentiment and support for the current Liberal government. Despite this, Prime Minister Carney's previous business interactions with Chinese companies are being exploited by his political rivals. Surveys suggest that while the Liberal Party, under Carney, is still favored to win, its advantage over Pierre Poilievre's Conservative Party is diminishing. Japan is navigating a series of significant events. Crown Prince Akishino participated in a memorial mass for Pope Francis in Tokyo, with U.S. Ambassador George Glass among the 1,000 attendees. The nation is also confronting the ethical and legal dilemmas surrounding AI-generated child sexual abuse images, which are not explicitly covered by existing laws. Efforts are ongoing to bring back the remains of Ainu people from Britain, following similar repatriations from Germany and Australia. A rice shortage has led a Tokyo restaurant owner, Arata Hirano, to use American rice. In eastern Japan, expressway accidents involving a driver traveling the wrong way resulted in 3 deaths and 10 injuries. South Korea has voiced worries that Japan's proposed unified defense zone with the U.S. might involve South Korea in conflicts beyond the Korean peninsula, including the Taiwan Strait. Families of North Korean abductees held a campaign in Tokyo seeking their return. 17 U.S. Congress members have urged President Donald Trump to prioritize the return of the abductees. California has reportedly overtaken Japan to become the world's 4th largest economy. United Kingdom Supreme Court has clarified that the terms woman and sex within the Equality Act are defined solely by biological sex. In response, a UK government minister has announced a ban on trans individuals using restrooms aligning with their gender identity. In other news, a van seemingly struck Just Stop Oil demonstrators during their concluding UK protest, prompting the driver to question their right to return home. Regarding Ukraine, President Volodymyr Zelensky characterized his discussion with Donald Trump at the Vatican, which took place during Pope Francis's funeral at the Basilica, as a productive exchange. U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio suggested that President Trump will decide this week on continuing Ukraine war talks, conveying measured hope for a possible peace agreement. Meanwhile, President Putin announced that the liberation of Kursk would pave the way for further advancements on other areas of the front. Russia has confirmed receiving aid from North Korea and thanked its forces for retaking Kursk. Many decisions made by President Trump have been perceived as advantageous to Russia, either directly or indirectly, with Russian officials celebrating some of his actions. United States President Trump met privately with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky in Rome, signaling a possible shift in the approach to a peace plan for Ukraine. The United States is also considering tariffs that could significantly impact Europe's pharmaceutical industry, the European Union's top export to the U.S. These tariffs pose a threat to British automakers, already facing challenges from Brexit and the transition to electric vehicles, as the U.S. is Britain's largest single market. Rezona Bank is establishing a U.S. office, its first in 21 years, to better serve its 1,200 client companies operating in the United States. Turning to the United Kingdom, British automakers are grappling with the combined pressures of Brexit, the transition to electric vehicles, and potential tariffs from the United States, their largest single market. In the European Union, Europe's pharmaceutical industry is bracing for potential tariffs from the United States. These tariffs could significantly affect the European Union's top export to the U.S., creating economic uncertainty. India is currently facing heightened tensions with Pakistan after a terrorist attack in Kashmir on April 22 resulted in the deaths of 26 people, primarily Indian tourists. This incident has sparked cross-border exchanges of fire between Indian and Pakistani forces in the contested Kashmir region for 3 consecutive nights. Responding to the escalating conflict, the UN has called for maximum restraint from both nations to prevent further escalation. Meanwhile, in the United States, FBI Director Kash Patel has condemned the terrorist attack in Pahalgam and assured India of complete support, underscoring the global implications of terrorism. Patel's statement reflects a strong alliance and commitment to combating terrorist activities worldwide. Across the Atlantic, in London, protests have broken out between Indian and Pakistani groups, reflecting the diaspora's deep-seated concerns and adding another layer of complexity to the already fraught relationship between India and Pakistan. These demonstrations highlight how international incidents can resonate within diverse communities abroad. Adding to the geopolitical complexities, India has been conducting naval drills. Concerns are growing that these exercises could be part of a broader strategy to build a case for potential strikes against Pakistan, further destabilizing the region. France is on edge after a deadly mosque attack in the country's south. A Malian Muslim worshipper was fatally stabbed. The suspect, who reportedly filmed the assault and repeatedly knifed the victim, is at large. A nationwide search is underway. Prime Minister François Bayrou denounced the attack as an Islamophobic atrocity. Marches against Islamophobia are planned throughout France. President Emmanuel Macron condemned the violence. He stressed the importance of religious freedom. He also rejected religious hatred. South Korea's Democratic Party has chosen former leader Lee Jae-myung to run in the upcoming snap presidential election on June 3rd. A key advisor to Lee Jae-myung suggested reassessing the wartime labor resolution, potentially shifting away from the Yoon government's existing approach. Canada is reeling after a vehicle struck a crowd at Vancouver's Lapu Lapu Street Festival, leaving 9 dead and prompting an arrest. In the Philippines, acclaimed screenwriter Ricardo Lee paid tribute to actress Nora Ano, recognizing her work in breaking down stereotypes and giving voice to marginalized Filipinos. Shifting to the Vatican, the canonization process for popes has evolved. While previous pontiffs were often swiftly declared saints, the modern process involves a more thorough examination, underscoring that holding the papacy does not guarantee sainthood. Taiwan is facing internal policy changes and shifting public sentiment regarding international relations. The government is cracking down on individuals holding illegal Chinese identity documents. Over 20 people have had their Taiwanese status revoked. Hundreds more have had their papers cancelled in the last decade. Public distrust of the United States is growing, according to a recent poll. Many Taiwanese have lost confidence in the U.S. following tariffs imposed by the Trump administration. Social media reflects anxiety that Taiwan could be sold out by the U.S., similar to Ukraine. Tens of thousands have rallied against President William Lai. Recall turmoil is occurring within the legislature. Opposition leaders from the WHAM and TP parties accuse Lai and his DP party of trying to eliminate opposition parties. This has further intensified political tensions. Germany marked a somber occasion as survivors and families gathered to commemorate the 80th anniversary of the liberation of the Bergen-Belsen Nazi concentration camp. But British Deputy Prime Minister Angela Rayner was present at the ceremony in northern Germany. Meanwhile, in Hamburg, a murder investigation was initiated by police following the death of 58-year-old Alexandra Fröhlich, a best-selling German novelist discovered on her houseboat after a violent assault. Spain witnessed Alex Marquez clinching his first MotoGP Grand Prix, reclaiming the championship lead from his brother Marc after the latter's unfortunate crash. Meanwhile, diverging from current trends, Spanish automotive component maker Gestamp revealed intentions to broaden its manufacturing footprint in China, as stated by its executive chairman at the Shanghai Auto Show. We could be a very active player. Shifting focus to Canada, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau announced new sanctions targeting individuals and entities connected to the Iranian regime, citing human rights abuses and destabilizing actions in the region. These measures follow increasing international pressure on Iran over its nuclear program and its involvement in regional conflict. Across the Atlantic in France, President Emmanuel Macron is facing renewed scrutiny over proposed pension reforms that have sparked widespread protests and strikes across the country. The reforms aim to raise the retirement age, a move that has been met with fierce opposition from labor unions and the public. In Israel, recent strikes have resulted in at least 35 fatalities, according to rescue workers. Simultaneously, a Hamas delegation engaged with Egyptian mediators in Cairo. Their discussions centered on possible solutions to the 18-month conflict, including proposals for a 5-year Gaza truce and a single comprehensive hostage release. Transitioning to Egypt, a notable rise in the popularity of women's sports is being observed. most prominently in soccer. This surge is attributed to increased television coverage, more institutional funding, and shifting societal attitudes. Ghana is currently the site of a lawsuit against Meta, filed on behalf of roughly 150 content moderators in Accra. The moderators, employed by a Meta contractor, allege severe psychological distress stemming from their exposure to graphic and disturbing social media content. Their duties involve reviewing material, such as murders, violence, and child sexual abuse, which has reportedly led to significant mental health issues like depression and anxiety among the group. Yemen is grappling with a multifaceted crisis, evidenced by a recent maritime incident where a commercial vessel ran aground in the Red Sea, compelling Yemenis to rescue hundreds of sheep. Simultaneously, strikes within Yemen have resulted in casualties, sparking accusations that the international community is neglecting the plight of Yemeni civilians. Further complicating the situation, Yemen's Houthi rebels launched a missile aimed at Israel, which was intercepted by Israeli defense forces. This series of events underscores the significant challenges confronting Yemen, including economic fragility, ongoing military engagements, and its involvement in broader regional hostilities. Starting our global update, the United States saw the Federal Reserve hold interest rates steady, signaling a cautious approach to inflation. The Fed cited strong economic growth, but remained wary of persistent price pressures. Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen emphasized the administration's commitment to fiscal responsibility. Shifting to Canada, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau announced new investments in artificial intelligence research. The funding aims to boost Canada's competitive edge in the rapidly evolving tech sector. Concerns remain about the ethical implications of AI development. Across the Atlantic, in the United Kingdom, Prime Minister Rishi Sunak faced renewed pressure over the Northern Ireland Protocol. Negotiations with the European Union are ongoing to ease trade frictions. The Democratic Unionist Party continues to voice strong objections. Meanwhile, in France, President Emmanuel Macron unveiled plans for pension reforms, raising the retirement age. The proposals triggered widespread protests and strikes across the country. Unions vowed to continue their opposition. Turning to Germany, Chancellor Olaf Scholz addressed Parliament on the ongoing energy crisis. He reiterated Germany's commitment to phasing out Russian gas import. New strategies are being implemented to secure alternative energy sources. Moving eastward to Ukraine, President Volodymyr Zelensky urged Western allies to provide more advanced weaponry. Fighting intensified in the eastern Donbas region. Humanitarian organizations are struggling to reach civilians in besieged areas. In Russia, President Vladimir Putin addressed the nation, accusing the West of escalating the conflict in Ukraine. He vowed to continue the military operation until its goals are achieved. New sanctions were imposed by the United States and the European Union. Focusing on China, President Xi Jinping called for greater self-reliance in technology. He emphasized the importance of developing indigenous capabilities in key sectors. Tensions with the United States remain high over trade and Taiwan. In India, Prime Minister Narendra Modi launched a new initiative to promote domestic manufacturing. The Make in India campaign aims to attract foreign investment and create jobs. Concerns linger about environmental regulations. Finally, Australia's Prime Minister Anthony Albanese announced a review of the country's defence strategy. The review will assess the evolving security landscape in the Indo-Pacific region. Increased military spending is expected. Finland, along with Poland, Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania, plans to withdraw from the international treaty banning anti-personnel landmines. These nations cite escalating military threats from Russia as the main reason for their decision. Rights groups have voiced strong concerns regarding this planned withdrawal. Greenland's political landscape sees Prime Minister Jens Frederik Nielsen engaged in discussions in Denmark, a visit occurring after his center-right Democrats Party's recent election win and against a backdrop of revived annexation proposals from the United States. Meanwhile, in Kathmandu, Nepal, a demonstration by thousands of teachers turned violent as they clashed with police. The protesting teachers, attempting to enter a restricted zone, were met with baton charges and water cannons, leaving 7 teachers injured along with several officers. Qatar has announced tentative progress in brokering a ceasefire between Israel and Hamas, even as the food crisis intensifies in the Palestinian territories. The United Nations is actively pressing for the removal of the blockade. In Panama, President José Raúl Mulino responded to U.S. President Trump's call for free passage for American ships through the Panama Canal, clarifying that transit fees are governed by the Panama Canal Authority, ACP. The Netherlands faces scrutiny as anti-discrimination coordinator Rabin Boldusing asserts that discrimination against Muslims has become normalized, underscoring a growing concern about Islamophobia in the country. Bangladesh grapples with questions surrounding its interim government, with Muhammad Yunus, chief advisor of interim government, raising concerns about whether the new administration embodies genuine reform or merely substitutes one elite with another. Japanese Prime Minister Shigeru Ishiba is currently on a 4-day diplomatic mission to Vietnam and the Philippines. The focus of his trip is to deepen security ties and bolster economic partnerships with both Southeast Asian nations. In Italy, President Trump engaged with President Zelensky and other global leaders during the solemn funeral rites for Pope Francis. The leaders convened on the sidelines of the event. Following the poignant farewell to Pope Francis, Roman Catholic devotees are now paying their respects at his tomb. The tomb is located within the hallowed basilica in Rome. From New Zealand, Cardinal John Dew, the nation's only cardinal, shared his thoughts on the funeral. He also acknowledged the significant challenge that lies ahead in choosing a successor to Pope Francis. In West Africa, specifically within its historical landscapes, archaeologists are diligently excavating Kansala. Kansala was once the thriving capital of the illustrious Kingdom of Kabu. The kingdom remains a prominent part of West African history, memorialized in the songs and stories passed down by griots. Turning to Malaysia, recent errors in artificial intelligence renderings of the Jala Gemilang, the Malaysian flag, have sparked widespread debate and nationalistic fervor. Even slight deviations from the correct design are being perceived as serious affronts to national pride. And that's a wrap for today's news, because even headlines need a nap. Stay curious, stay kind, and let the noise fade as you find your quiet. Take care, stay awesome, and I'll see you next time on WHAM Today.